I just got to Los Angeles. There's a cat in a bag. Oh, I'm on my way to meet up with Andrew Jones to learn about his new speaker company. Yes, not just a new speaker design, but also he's starting a speaker company. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Jana. Good fight?
Yeah. Where are we going?
We're about to see the latest finished prototype that they haven't seen yet. Okay, let's meet the guys. And the dogs.
Hello.
Hey, Gus. Hey, Gus. I'll say hi to the dogs first.
Hi. How are you doing, Jana? Nice to meet you.
Hi, Jana. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Bill.
And they've arrived. New prototypes.
I can't wait. Let's go. We're doing this as brothers to do something fun together. We both have separate careers. We both do different things, but we have this one passion that leads us here, and then to have one of, if not the greatest speaker designer as partner.
Don't say that in front of him.
What, one of?
Let's hope that I don't cut this all the way.
This is single boxed for these, but it will be at least double boxed.
Double box in it.
You ready?
I have it. I have it. Go.
Do not bite.
I think we did this the wrong way up.
It's wrong after all that. I work in music publishing. I've been a publisher for 25 years.
I was trained as an electrical engineer, and I've worked in Silicon Valley for 30 years now.
My first real experience of understanding what a great system could sound like was really Bill kind of building it in our childhood home. Early records of like The Clash and Van Halen 1 and things like that, hearing them kind of fully realized. Even those speakers that he initially bought and brought into the house and kind of blew my mind. By the time I had gone to college, because I'm much younger than Bill.
There we go.
By the time I got to
There we
college,
go.
I had those speakers, and they were a pair of Klipsch speakers.
KG4s.
KG4s. Bought a pair of Heresies, and then it just kind of started climbing the ladder and getting more sophisticated. But really the source of that was, Bill igniting that passion in hearing music sourced really, really well.
I believe you broke those speakers too.
I can't say. They definitely became party speakers, as they are probably best known as.
They didn't come back in the same condition they went out in.
So I'm going all the way up again, correct? To come down, this is the bottom. I've got this.
Okay.
No, that's actually.
I think it started when, in my local town, there was a record store that became available. Jamie didn't think it was a great idea to go buy a record store. It seemed like a really good idea to me. So we started to talk about it, and were there other ways that we could get into the industry?
It led me to a trip to a pressing plant, because a lot of records don't really have an analog source all the way through, and we were really interested in trying to bring great mastering to these younger artists who had actually recorded to tape. Andrew was also at the event for the new pressing facility. I had just gained access to TAD 4000
Compression
drivers.
Yeah. Were those the beryllium drivers?
The beryllium, I like anything beryllium.
Jamie has a problem with beryllium.
But anyway, Andrew was just lovely for a designer of his ilk to just kind of talk shop with just a crazy guy showing up at a pressing plant. He started talking about a speaker that he had wanted to design. Part of his history, which was really high efficiency speakers, and bringing that into a modern day speaker that had high efficiency, beautiful voicing, and great bass response.
And still had the performance of a dual concentric.
And then he started talking about field coils to me. He didn't really have a plan to do it, but it was something in his mind that he had always wanted to do.
Of course, I've seen Andrew basically on YouTube. I was a fan, and I thought that his approach was really exciting.
It was really interesting to both of us to say, hey, we're doing this strictly out of passion, and maybe he'd be interested in building that speaker with us.
There we go. There it is. Remember, originally this was blended in rather than a hard edge.
Yeah, there was no
and it
line
just
there.
wasn't.
Yeah.
differentiating the surfaces by making it hard-edged. Because it's deeper in the middle than at the sides, it sort of ends up forming an ellipse. Well, this isn't an ellipse, so it picks up on that detail. When you're sat down at normal height, you kind of don't see that edge. So it looks circular here and elliptical here.
You don't see it all the time.
Right.
You only see the diamond edge from certain angles,
Yes.
as opposed to it being like a ring that you just
And the
see.
same with this one, because it's
Yeah.
beveled. When you've got a faceted surface and a satin surface finish, the facets relative to the light look either grey or black or whatever.
Yeah.
When you've got a curved surface, it looks more grey. So I wanted to darken the look of that, and that's done by raising the gloss level.
That'll be much easier once the legs are on.
Yeah.
The whole thing together for the first time. It's amazing.
I love the simplicity of this, and then the complexity of it when the grill is off.
The only inboard part is because we've got the curvature on the bottom end of the cabinet, so the sides of that
Yeah, I think it works. We debated that a lot.
Yes.
And
You're right.
I don't know what I expected. I work a lot with engineers in high tech. It's a different process. So first of all, most of the engineers in Silicon Valley kind of work on one thing. Andrew's very broad. So he'll do mechanical engineering, he'll help design the cabinet, he does the everything, knows everything about audio, he's like an encyclopedia. And he also has a ton of experience. So Jamie and I sometimes, if we have an idea that is more naive, like, oh, we think speakers should work this way or look this way or do this thing, and it's a very sort of outsider's view. He's very patient with us.
Filming that round there. I'm just going, you want us to be what?
It was definitely a more challenging speaker to build. It was definitely going to cost more. Bill and I were kind of like, let's build the best thing we could possibly build with Andrew. So we talked to him about becoming a partner with us, having ownership in the speaker, putting his name on the company, which he hadn't done with any speaker previously.
I haven't seen it.
Wow.
there we go.
That's cool.
That's very finished.
Unbelievable.
Furniture.
Okay, now okay.
Wow, that was
That's also good, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Andrew, let's put it in the system.
Yeah, just watch
Okay.
the weight
yeah,
is there because of the.
Holding it.
Okay.
How does that look? Woo!
That looks amazing.
Gus isn't exactly showing massive enthusiasm.
We were really aligned with Andrew already. Like a lot of the aesthetic decisions, high efficiency, the naturalness of the sound, the extended bass. You know, it was like, it wasn't a hard conversation. A lot of the trade-offs, we were already really close.
Yeah. And he had me at beryllium.
Yeah.
But then he really had me at field coil.
There's no beryllium in the
There's no
speaker, by
beryllium
the
in
way.
the speaker. But there is a field coil.
This is the field coil driver, which is very heavy, so I'm going to protect the table first. I'll just use a magazine here. Kate Bush. Drivers Club. Perfect for my driver. Okay. Lift with a straight back. And, all right, here's the drive unit. It's a paper cone, 10-inch diameter, but this is a dedicated mid-range unit. So the surround here is very narrow. It both reduces the mass of the surround, lessens any disruption to the sound wave as it comes up the cone, because here in the center, you see the tweeter has a little short horn section going into the profile of the cone, across the surround, and ultimately out on the baffle. In this design, to get enough BL to drive the sensitivity levels I need, I've moved up to a 60mm diameter mid-range voice coil. So 28mm for the tweeter, 60mm for the mid-range. And it's a short coil in a long gap to get maximum linearity. But the very special feature in this drive unit is this field coil concentric field coils. So the outer field coil energizes the mid-range voice coil, and the inner field coil energizes the tweeter. That's a complex structure to build. So essentially, in the middle, we have the pole piece for the tweeter. Wrapped around that is the field coil winding to energize the tweeter gap. Around that is a steel tube that is the return path for that field coil energy. So that goes and creates the required magnetic field in the tweeter. Now, around that return path, we wind the mid-range field coil. And outside of that, we have this pot that is the return path for the mid-range. And there is helper action going on between the two coils. The bigger coil also helps push up the level of the tweeter flux density. And so that helps raise the overall efficiency. So as I've indicated, this is very heavy. It's around 35 pounds weight. But that's necessary in order to get enough magnet, in sense of enough copper, mass of copper, number of turns, to generate enough flux, whilst also keeping the energy requirements reasonably low. This consumes somewhere around 50 watts total power. So it gets warm, but you need that kind of energy to get the flux densities that we want in this driver. So we get somewhere around 98 dB from the mid-range section and 96 at the top end for the tweeter, but over 100 dB at the point where it crosses over from the tweeter to the mid-range. And then we balance that all out in the crossover to give us the overall flat response that we want. So it's built on a cast chassis, a very strong cast aluminum chassis, but we've still got 35 pounds of mass hanging on the back of the chassis. And the typical way that we mount drivers is with screws on the front. So for here, I use machine screws into captive bushers in the cabinet, but I felt that might not be quite enough with this mass. And so there's a structure inside of the speaker cabinet that clamps on to this pot and gives further strength to the mounting arrangements. So there we have it. A loudspeaker that incorporates technology that I've spent a career developing and working with, combined with a new twist of the field coil driver. And the nice thing with this level of sensitivity that this driver gives in the system is that the speaker is perfect for driving with low power amplifiers, and particularly low power tube amplifiers such as single-ended triodes. It's the perfect complement. And talking of tubes, look at this. I'm going to turn it on. It lights up, it spins, there's no music. But then the RCA red tips were known for being one of the quietest tubes in the market back in the day.
One of the things about the high efficiency market, if you think about it, right? Many of them are compression drivers into horns, right? And a lot of those speakers are also kind of coming out of the DIY space. One of the things that we didn't understand is that you can get the dynamic feeling of a horn speaker or a high efficiency speaker through other methods, right? It's not necessarily a compression driver that's giving you that feeling. Andrew felt that by hitting the high efficiency mark, that would allow us to get, we could get to this more dynamic feel. And so I think that's one of the things that we learned from him. There was like more than one way to get there.
You've seen the speaker. I wanted to show you some more of my gear, some of my favorite pieces or pieces that are in my system. This is my Marantz 7 preamp, my most adored piece that I own.
Action with the speaker.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. I mean, the Jones and Cerreta speaker is my most adored piece in my system. But this Marantz, it's got 2 phono inputs. They really planned for everything, even as far back as the early 60s when this was built. I have 2 amps in my system that I kind of switch back and forth through. This is my Macintosh 275, all NOS tubes, classic. This is my Ellicott 300B amp. Bill put it together for me with Lundvall transformers.
Yeah, we hot rodded it a little bit.
Yeah. Bill hot rodded it a little bit. I couldn't explain to you what happened in that hot rodding, but it does sound incredible. This is my Miyajima mono step up. This is my quadratic step up. This is what I use for my stereo carts, and this was built by my friend Jam, who designed for Pass and Carry Audio. I have this Thorens right now, which I'm auditioning. I normally use a Garrard 401 that has a really big plinth and 2 chic tone arms. I use EMT cartridges both in stereo and mono with that. This is a direct drive turntable, so I've been trying it out. This turntable is just like silent in comparison. The Garrard, so musical, unbelievable, but it has the famous Garrard, like a slight rumble on it, but updated TD 124.
Yeah, it's interesting that you got that because it's old brought new. Yeah, the Garrard is old original.
Yeah.
And I grew up in the days of Garrard turntables.
Yeah.
But the first real turntable I owned was
The 120.
Not the 124, but the 160.
160, okay.
But it's good to see this being reintroduced.
This is my R&D cabinet maker in Los Angeles. And then I thought it would be kind of cool to show you some of the records that the artists that I work with as a publisher. My collection kind of is spread out throughout my home. Blake Mills. I've worked with Blake for about 13 years. Blake's an incredible singer-songwriter, producer. Wise Blood, another incredible singer-songwriter, artist. Ethan Gruska, who I worked with mostly as a songwriter, producer, but Ethan makes he also works as an artist and makes some great records. This is a really special record. This record was really important to me with Ray. I started working with Ray at the very beginning of my career. No one knew who he was. He was literally living in a cabin in Maine, and I brought him out here to Los Angeles, and we made this record with Ethan Johns, the son of Glyn Johns, but Ethan, obviously an incredible producer in his own right. And we did this without any partners, no label, no manager, no booking agent. It just Ray and his publishers, and we did this. Then he got signed from having this record, and this record has gone on to be massively successful. This is one of the first records by My Morning Jacket. There's another Blake Mills. This is Blake's record that he just won the Grammy for Best Engineered Record. This is one of my favorites, Beach House, who I've worked with for a while now. The jacket on this is incredible. It's all velvet. And yeah, I'm just a very lucky guy to be able to work with artists and then listen to the music they make on this incredible system.
Let's see. My hi-fi system at home is mostly stuff that I've repaired. I tend to buy vintage gear and then work on it. My garage is a little bit of a laboratory now. Also vintage test gear and things like that. I have a Marantz 8B that I really love, tube amp from the mid-60s. It has the original tubes in it. It's an absolutely beautiful piece. I have a Macintosh MC 2105 that I restored. It's a solid state amp. I love the sound of amplifiers with transformers, and they have transformers on the output. I have a Macintosh C22 preamp. It's actually a little bit newer. It's a Mark IV. I have a Technics SL 1200 Mark VI. And people who are really into Technics will know that the Mark VI was never sold in the US. So I bought it from Japan and I converted it from a Japanese voltage from 100 to 120. And I have a Sansui, it's a QS800A, which is a very rare quadraphonic rear amplifier. So I like to listen to quad records sometimes. And I have a pair of Tannoy Berkeley speakers from the mid-70s, tannoy gold, 15-inch drivers in a cabinet. Components change all the time. Right now, I'm pretty happy with my system.
Don't say anything about the tea bag. Well, as they say in the song, everything stops for tea, except when I'm talking about woofers. Cheers. This is the 12-inch woofer, 2 of them in the loudspeaker. The requirement is that you've got enough area, the correct moving mass, and the correct motor strength to get the correct frequency response in that size of cabinet at the efficiency level that we want. So everything has to be optimized to produce that. And as you can see, it's a paper cone, paper dust cap, it's a coated cloth surround. So all of that contributes to getting the moving mass of around 55 grams that I need for this. The motor structure, while not as massive as the field coil, it is a special construction. First of all, it's an underhung design. Short coil, long gap. That gives greatest linearity. And in fact, all the gaps, voice coils and gaps in the field coil are also short coil, long gap. In the woofer, it's achieved with neodymium magnets, 1 at each end of the gap, and it's a 1/2-inch coil in a 26mm long gap. And that gives me the linearity and excursion that I require. Combined with vented voice coil former and a large spider to help with the linearity, and put on a cast chassis. So all in all, quite a capable woofer. And with 2 woofers in the cabinet, that's equivalent to at least a 15-inch woofer. So it's capable of very good loud extended bass, as well as the efficiency level that I required out of the system. Now, with essentially 3 drivers, tweeter, mid-range woofer, I require a crossover to combine all of those together, a 3-way crossover. And I'm crossing over about 100 to 130 hertz between the woofer and the mid-range. And from the mid-range to the tweeter, around just over 1 kilohertz. I can do that with the efficiency level of the tweeter, the fact that the tweeter is rear vented to lower its self-resonant frequency down to somewhere around 600 hertz, and the fact that it's waveguide loaded by the 10-inch cone. All of that combined allows me to cross over lower and get better off-axis performance. A 3-way crossover is a complex crossover to design, especially crossing over low, but I've done lots of those crossovers in the past. I don't fear complexity, and complexity is good in the context of getting proper alignment between all the drivers. And in the development of that crossover, I custom manufacture all of the components. The capacitors, which are metallized polypropylene film capacitors, they're custom designed to my requirements. All the air core inductors, nearly all inductors are air cored except for a few that are required in the base. Everything is assembled here in Southern California. Under my direction, I test both the crossovers and the finished system. I pre-test all the drivers that go into that system. So the end product is guaranteed to be consistent and up to the quality level that I've set for this loudspeaker system. Now I can finish my tea.
Andrew has always been a designer. He had never been an owner in a company, a speaker company. And we had never been people in the electronics space of building products or doing anything like that. So we were probably just naive enough to just go for it. It's wild to think that just chance meeting at a vinyl pressing place that I wasn't even sure I was going to make it out to the presentation because it wasn't close. It was a bit of a drive. And I sort of remember Andrew saying that he really wasn't sure because it was a Friday afternoon. You know, we're in LA and traffic's a concern.
Nobody drives out of LA on a Friday.
Drives out of LA on a Friday. Just by chance, we met up with one another. And then by chance, my brother and I had this idea of trying to do something together. And then by chance, we went and met Andrew and all got along and believed in the vision. And now we're sitting here with the first Jones and Cerreta speaker.
Hi, I'm Bill Cerreta.
And I'm Jamie Cerreta, and we're the Fratelli Brothers Cerreta.
No.
All right, let's get it on the stand.
Is that
That's the cut.
That's a cut.
Let's get it on the stand. That's our cut.
What did you think of the new speaker? Is it good? I hope you like it. Yes? Yes? Oh, thank you. Yeah, that means you like it, doesn't it? Yeah, oh, thank you, Gus.